Good morning and welcome to Wake Up with the Consciousness Café. My name is Lisa Ferraro. I'm the founder of SoulCall Global. And this morning we welcome one of my favorite coaches on the planet, who's got a smile and a way of asking questions. I've always been impressed with the questions of Tom Rausch. And Tom Rausch is the founder and CEO of Leadership Beyond Limits. And he's also the director of consulting for the Barrett's Value Assessments. And Tom, welcome this morning.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
Yeah, talking about values and coaching and leadership beyond limits. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration for that name and how it's playing out in your
Well, it's a wonderful descriptive name, and I got to admit that the founding partner who I joined later picked it out. And I kind of resented it over the years because that's a lot to type every time you type your email address. But
Yes.
I love the concept of leadership beyond limits, and so does everybody whoever hears
Yeah.
that. They're like, because it opens up your mind, right? And
Mhm.
that's what we want. We want leaders without limits. So so I've been using the Barrett Values assessments for 12, 13 years in my leadership practice. And I love the Barrett tools because it looks at an evolutional model of development, like as we move from physical needs up to mental needs, all the way up to spiritual needs. It is really based in humans value what they need, right? And so once we get our basic needs met, then we can move up to the higher level needs. And when you take that same assessment and you apply it to an organizational culture, you can actually measure the consciousness of a culture, which is really important because you can't move a culture. It's very hard to move a culture in the direction you imagine you want it to go if you don't have the starting point, right? So you almost have to do the assessment to figure out, where am I, so I can know to where I need to get to. And when Barrett just called me about 3 months ago and asked me if I'd take on this new position, and I had to think about it for about 1 hour, and then I realized, oh, this is my dream job, because you might see over my shoulder here is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we have a new assessment that actually will look at culture and say, how fit is your culture, and what's the consciousness of your leaders to be able to deliver on the goals, if you've chosen to deliver on the goals. And for those who don't know, those are 17 goals that the UN, that have over something around 14,000 large organizations have signed on to, 160 countries, to clean air, clean water, all the basic, equity, justice, peace, prosperity. And I think it's absolutely essential. And as I was looking at the problems of our world a few months back, right before Barrett called me, it became very, very clear that it's not a scientific problem that we have to solve, say, pollution or even global climate warming. We have the science and the technology that we can actually solve all this. What we have, though, is a leadership gap where the people in charge of things maybe don't have the consciousness that's needed to make the shift and create the world of heaven on earth, which is actually possible now because of technology. But but history would show us that every new age of shift from hunting and gathering to cities and agriculture, and now potentially into this new age, we've kind of messed it up and went into a dark age because we've clung to the past. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen this next time.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting point. We keep clinging to the past and wanting to, that sense of nostalgia, or like the good old days. For who? Like, who are we talking about with regard to the good old days? And I remember in a sociology class in college, writing at the end of the paper, I got an A++ because I put this last line on there: everybody believes in equality for everyone, just as long as their piece is just a little bigger. And it's not everybody, of course, but
Right.
somewhere in the back, when you're, so I ask a question like this with regard to the values, because you bring up so many points. We can go in so many directions here, but needs versus desires. How do you drill down to what is it? This is a need and this is a desire. How do you
Well,
tell?
that is such, I think that so human beings have physical needs, they have mental needs, they have emotional needs, and they have spiritual needs.
Right.
And the body, our egos, our meat puppet that we walk around
Yeah.
is really much invested in the physical needs and the mental and the emotional needs. But I believe it's the desires of our soul that
Mm.
actually call forth our spiritual needs. And so I don't see desire as a bad thing in that way. I see it as a call from our soul. And in fact, a lot of the modern leadership literature, when we talk and try to teach people to observe yourself operating on the dance floor, but be up in the balcony and watching yourself from the balcony, that's how you come to the ultimate self-awareness of a leader. And what the best writers in leadership are talking about now is they're saying, who's in the balcony? Well, it's the soul. They're actually calling it the soul is in the balcony. So if you frame desires that way, I think it's a wonderful way to do it.
Yeah, that's a great analogy and a wonderful visual to get the big picture of how
Yeah,
you look in context with everything else.
right.
What's the most fascinating thing you've come across in the years of using the values assessment? Like, I'm sure you've got story after story, but like maybe a remarkable shift in recognition.
Yeah, well, one thing this pattern I see over and over again is that the organizational culture is always going to be, for better or worse, a picture of the leadership and both the positive side and the shadow side of the leadership. So it's the work of that I do in trying to shift large systems is always about getting leaders to look at their shadow, because by definition we don't see our shadow. So that's a repeating pattern that's fascinating. And to get there, you need to get people out of their comfort zone. And so, there's a lot of tools and technologies we use to do that. Teaching things as simple as teaching people to listen and ask questions, you know. But I think the most fascinating thing I've come across lately was this idea that we are entering a new age, or potentially entering a new age. The disruption, this crazy disruption that we see going on around us, is actually because every single part of the economy is disrupting at like a 10x scale.
Yeah.
And that's also driving costs down by 10 times. And so every human on the planet is going to have the opportunity to live with decent food, shelter, water, everything that, an education, everything that we want, for the equivalent of a few $100s a month, USD. And so again, it's not a question of can we get there, will we get there? It's a question of, will our leaders raise their consciousness so that we can do that? Because we already know we supply enough food for the entire planet. We just don't
Totally.
distribute it evenly
Right.
because our economic systems are unjust.
Yeah. Yeah. So out of the box thinking, like some creative ideas to keep things going and to keep. So does the entire system of the way we structure economics need to shift? And how would you see that? Because I remember learning about economics a long time ago, in school again, and it just seemed like there was always enough of these things. And it's just what you said. But it's how they get controlled and manipulated just for the sake of the thing that's not the material thing in the first place, the energy of money. How can we, as a society, do our part as individuals? How can we, maybe, with the use of our dollar, what could we be saying yes to or no to participate with this global shift?
Well, we should all invest in Bitcoin and Dogecoin. No, I'm kidding about that. But that, the shift that's happening, and
Yeah.
consumers are doing a huge part of it, is people, part of the reason that so many organizations have signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals is because consumers are are choosing those products. So time after time, if I have a choice between a product that's 5% more, but I know that they, are sustainable, or they invest in education, or they are committed to clean water, I will purchase that product. So there's very selfish reasons to get involved in the new
Yeah.
consciousness. The other thing that's happening, and why I work in business and industry, is because I believe business caused a lot of the problems of pollution, et cetera. But so, and they are also the ones with the resources to solve it. So that as the business leaders shift their thinking, and the big shift that's happening is we're going from a linear um, take, make, waste
Uh-huh.
linear economy to a circular economy that's recycle, reuse, refurbish. And there are, depending upon what you read, there's anywhere from 30 trillion to $300 trillion to be made by the organizations who figure out how to do that. I mean, all you've got to do is look at Elon Musk, who sits at the apex of AI and electric cars and driverless cars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made by doing good,
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing. You know, I think about something you said made me think about the next 3 steps. I like to think about a thing and how spending slightly more on a product that you know is creating a circle and not a linear
That's
situation
right.
for us is in a lot of ways saving us money in the long run, isn't it?
It is. It's saving us, it's saving the planet. I mean, it all started when we started recycling, right? And we looked at
Yeah.
our own behaviors, and of course we need to continue all of that, right? So save our own water, but then invest in, and there's a huge shift in investment where the real money, the folks with a lot of money to invest are looking at environmental sustainability, it's called ESG investing. So the whole world is shifting this way. It's really just a question of, can we do it fast enough? And that again comes down to people making their everyday choices and saying, either I'm not going to do this, I'm going to conserve a little bit more, or I'm going to spend money on the better product that I know I'm not going to have to. I'm going to buy that steel straw rather than the box of plastic straws. I mean, there's a million little things we can all do.
Yeah.
But it's all living according to our purpose in the end, I think, and understanding what's most important to me. And that's why, for me, it's my 4 grandchildren. That's the reason I'm, still doing this and intend to work to 2030 to see the goals through.
Yeah. So is it a hot topic among most leaders? You said it is, and or who are the holdouts, if any? And may I put you on a spot with that? You don't have to answer that question, but like, are there holdouts that we can help push over the edge with our consciousness in terms of what we buy or don't buy, just to help them get over the hump?
One of the great areas right now, I would say, is in personal banking. And I don't want to recommend certain banks, but all you got to do, and you can see it on commercials on television, that certain banks are moving towards this kind of circular economy and look at how we treat people. Whereas traditional banks, there's been a scandal every year of, whether it's Wells Fargo, opening up accounts that weren't supposed to be there. So I was just on a call with other leaders looking at this very topic, and the financial industry is one of the ones that really needs our blessings and our prayers and our actions to move that way. Interestingly, consumer goods are moving there very fast. Unilever has been a leader in this across the globe. Mars Candy and dog food products has been a leader in this movement. But yeah, it's the financial industry. If I was to pick somebody who still needs
a little
some help. Yeah.
And that's good to know, because that is something we can definitely take charge of. It's our choices. And it doesn't take that long, does it, to just, I think, well, things are moving so quickly, to just take a proactive step in investigating a few steps to see what we're putting our money into, what we're not putting our money into. I know I do that in the grocery store before I purchase things.
Yeah.
Clothes, shoes, like in terms of clothing, trying to buy things that were made in a humane way and that I'll have for several years. Not that it's going to fall apart on my body one day because I'm out in the sun. That's a real thing for women's clothing.
Yeah.
So just paying attention.
Yeah.
How many years has have the 17 agreements been, the UN? When did they adopt?
It's been about 10 or 13 years when they first came up with the global compact, and then they've been building it and they came out with the goals next, and now it's reached a crescendo, and they're calling it the decade to deliver. And I mean, literally something like 14,000 of the world's largest organizations have signed on. And one of my largest clients, Accenture, was a huge consulting firm. They raised their sustainability person who was leading that part of the business to C-suite level. He reports directly, and it's now built into the strategy. And again, it goes back to that trillions of dollars to be made. It turns out that meeting the basic needs of all of humanity is also the profitable thing to do, which of course, universe soul would have invented it that way. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else in closing? You've given us so much to think about, and we'll have to have you on a Sunday morning sometime to talk about ways to be more sustainable, more present, more proactive in this shift towards enlightenment the soul's calling to share. But any closing remarks, or what can you charge us with this morning?
I would just say treat yourself as a learner, and always have some kind of thing you're trying to do today that lives into your own values and your own purpose. And if you have, I find that if I set myself a specific goal, even if it's just to simply be more grateful today or be more present with people today, I mean, it's the little day-to-day interactions and reminding yourself of that, so you don't get, it's interrupting our automatic thinking, as the Eastern philosophers would say. Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. So give ourselves an intention for the day, and we take charge of our day instead of being.
And that's how I teach leadership, is you break it down to simple little things and just practice this today.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's always too short when we get to talk. But Tom Rausch, Leadership Beyond Limits, thank you for joining us this morning. So much to think about and percolate in our consciousness, since it's coffee.
Thanks,
To be
Lisa.
continued.
All right.
And remember, wherever you are on your path this morning, you are loved. Peace and blessings.